Hello and welcome to the Ohio Arts Council's Rife Gallery. This is the Interwoven Creative Writing Workshop with writer, poet, and arts educator, Dionne Custer Edwards. Today, we're going to explore multi-sensory creative writing as an extension of the exhibition. We'll hear first from Dionne, then gather our materials and work through the prompts step by step. There will be dedicated pause points in the video, but please work at your own pace and use this video as you need. All right, welcome, Dionne.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I want to start today by pointing out a few resource links that are available. There's the link to the video that will be online, and then also a resource link to the photos of the exhibition of the artwork Interwoven. And so those will be available for you to use during this workshop. Next, I'd love for you to gather some materials. So whatever you need to write, it could be pen or pencil, journal, loose paper, a laptop, your sketchbook, any of the tools that you feel you need to write, maybe a glass of water, and then gather in the space where you will work. And I want to start off by sort of talking a little bit about what we'll do today and then go into the prompts. So we're going to start off with guided looking today and then move into sharing and gathering. We'll do a little bit with looking, listening, feeling, asking, basically asking our enlisting our five senses into our writing, and then we'll go right into writing. So I want to talk a little bit about guided looking or extensive looking or expanded looking. Involves engaging with art in a meaningful way. It asks you to slow down. It asks you to think carefully and to look closely at an artwork. And we're using this for visual art and for objects, and we're going to look at materials today, but this can be used for lots of different art forms. And so guided looking could be used as a springboard for your creative writing. And so that's what we'll do today. One thing that I also wanted to note about today's workshop is that the sharing and gathering piece is really important. And so you can do this as an individual experience, and this works. All these prompts will work for you. But what's really nice is if you can gather in a group setting, because that way, during the sharing and gathering and during the listening, work can be shared from multiple people, and that really does become a part of your work. You'll hear a word that you like, you'll hear a phrase or a sentence that you really love that'll make you think of something else. And I think I want you to remember that the words belong to all of us. So someone might have said a word that you really like, and you might use that word in your own writing. And so if you say you're in a learning setting or you're in a small group setting, it's really nice to be with others for this workshop, but you can do it as an individual as well. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to begin by looking at Claire Murray Adams' piece, Storyteller. And as you can see, this is an installation work that has several smaller works. And what I'd like you to do is to just begin by looking. You may need to zoom in. You might focus in on some of the smaller works. You might look at this work as a whole. And as you get comfortable, you might want to begin to write down what you see. You might begin to write down shapes or colors. You might see some interesting lines. Maybe those lines are a particular kind of shape or color. Maybe those lines are doing something really interesting. You might see swirls, pathways, shadows, or light. You might also consider what kinds of sounds the work evokes. Is this a quiet work? Is this a busy work? What about textures? What do you imagine are the textures? Now with the guided looking, slow is the key. And so I really encourage you to resist trying to interpret or to figure out what the artist might be communicating, or trying to sort of solve a puzzle, if you will. I encourage you to really focus on your observations. That's what's going to open up your writing later on. So once you're able to really sort of gather lots of interesting observations, if you're working with a group, this is a great time to be able to share and gather. And so folks can just say out loud some of the things, some of their observations, and others' observations will be maybe different from yours. And really allow a whole room full of ideas and observations. Write down as many of those observations and things that you hear as possible. Write all of it down. It also might cause you to think of other kinds of words that you want to write down that maybe you didn't initially write down. This is a time, again, where we're sharing all of this language with each other. So write down the words that interest you, write down the words that inspire you or move you in some way. And once you've done that, and everyone has had a chance to share that wants to share, we'll look once more. We've heard some others' ideas, some others' observations. This is really great as a group exercise so that you can be able to share ideas. But now we'll look once more. And while we're looking, I'd like you to try and write down one spectacular question, one really interesting, specific question maybe. Maybe you have more than one question. Write down 2, 3, 4 imaginative questions about this work. Maybe what you've just heard from the sharing and gathering allows you to be more curious, allows you to write down more questions. Allow yourself to be curious. If you only have one question, that's fine too. Maybe you'll write a question that's out of the ordinary. Again, not trying to solve the work, but trying to be inventive. Maybe you'll write down something unexpected, something surprising that maybe doesn't even have anything to do with this work. All of that is okay. And then you'll want to take time to then write. And so that is essentially the way that you might move through a workshop like this or exercises like this. Let's try once more. So we'll start with guided looking. We'll look for shapes and colors and shadows, pathways. We'll try and listen and see if we might be able to pull sound from the work. Someone might be saying this work sounds really quiet. Another person might be saying there's churning or spinning or grinding happening in the work. We'll observe the textures. We'll feel the textures. We'll maybe zoom in. We'll maybe back away. If you were in the gallery, you would maybe move up close to a work. You might look at it from different angles. you might share your observations with someone else. And so next, you'll want to share and gather, right? So if you're in a group setting, this is a perfect time once you have your observations written down on the page. This is a time to share what you've observed, what you've noticed about the work. Everyone listens, everyone writes down things that they hear, that they like, that they're interested in. And then you move through and ask a question or two or three or four. Really inventive questions, wondrous questions. And then you'll write. And I say you could write for 5 minutes, depending on your setting, you could write for 5 minutes, but you also could write for 30 minutes. Or anywhere in between. So let's move through this once more. Before I move through, I want to make sure that you know that this is Radiant by Laura Alexander. We'll move through the next. And this is Cascade by Lauren Davies. And you will once again look at the work. Maybe you will notice that the materials are draping from the wall. Maybe you'll notice that the shape is rectangular, but maybe it seems to be coming undone towards the bottom. Maybe you'll wonder about the image and what that image, not what it is or not what the artist is trying to communicate, but really sort of what you notice about the image. Maybe the materials, is there stone, is there wood, is that water behind, or is that sky? Is this a loud work, a soft work? You'll then move to sharing and gathering. Everyone will share their ideas. If you're doing this as an individual, you may sort of move through the share and gather piece a little bit more quickly and go towards the question. And then you'll begin to write. And I say that you could write a list, you could write a poem, you can begin to write sentences and see where those sentences lead you, maybe short prose. And your writing is not about the piece. Your writing is your writing and whatever is coming to you. And so for this fourth prompt, you will have had good practice moving through the guided looking, the sharing, the gathering, all of the sort of sensory work that you're doing through this, through this sort of long, extended, slow looking. The writing of questions, maybe you will be really comfortable with writing spectacular questions by this point, interesting, wondrous questions, and then writing. And so you will then put all of this together and hopefully be quite practiced at this. You don't have to move through all 4 prompts. This is just an example of how you could do this. Maybe if you're in a classroom setting, you just do 1 prompt because of time. But maybe if you have a little bit more time, you might want to move through several works. This work is by Oksana Dallas, Born from Stardust. There's an individual in the piece, in the center of the piece. There are textures in the background. This is a textile work. You may want to zoom in to be able to sort of see that texture, to see if there might be color, or to see if it might be a little bit more muted. And after you've moved through this process, take as much time as you want, as you have, to write. And if you're in a group setting, I encourage you always to share. For those who want to share the work, just to see what came of the questions, what came of the observations, how many people use some of the same language or words in all of these different ways. That's what makes this interesting. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, this DIY workshop. Again, my name is Dionne Custer Edwards, and you can connect with me at the links that you see here. And I hope you enjoyed this exercise, and I hope that you will get into a gallery soon and maybe try this out in person. If you're unable to, again, this can be easily done via a computer or a device. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thank you so much, Dionne. And to support what Dionne just said, this is a really great way to approach art in general. It really gives you new and exciting access points. And involves you in a really special way. So thank you again for joining us for this DIY creative writing workshop led by Dionne Custer Edwards as a part of our programming for the Interwoven exhibition. Special thank you to Dionne for the generosity of her time and talent, to the curator, Tracy Rieger, as well as to the Ohio Arts Council's board, the Ohio legislature, and the governor who support the Ohio Arts Council, this great space, and of course, Ohio artists. Thanks and have a great day.